Hello and welcome, my dear friends. For the next few moments, I'd love to simply sit and create together with you. You're very welcome to just relax and watch, or to paint along with me as we go. In this session, I'll be sketching 3 tiny moments that recently caught my eye out in nature. A hummingbird visiting sage, an egret standing quietly by the water, and a gull flying over the shore. As I paint, I'll mention every color I'm using, and you'll find the full list of art supplies written out for you in the description below. Wherever you're watching from, please feel free to say hello in the comments, or tell me about the birds and places that inspire you lately. I always love hearing from you. I know there's so much unfolding right now, in the US and across the world, and the weight of it can feel overwhelming. But I want to remind us not to forget the life that continues quietly right alongside it. Even now, a tree is silently growing, birds are taking flight, and a gentle breeze is moving through the air. These things are happening all around us in every moment. When we try to truly notice them, we ground ourselves in the present. It helps us stand firm and keep our hearts open, holding on to the hope that love and peace will finally find their way to us. Dear friends, as you saw at the beginning, I first swatch the colors. I like doing this from time to time because it reminds me how the colors actually look on paper, and it gently encourages me to stay open to color exploration. In this session, you won't see me drawing the initial pencil sketch on camera. At first, I was just planning to make a few tiny thumbnails for myself, to play with ideas for a future video. Only after I finished the pencil sketches did I realize it might be nice to bring you into this process and share how I use this little sketchbook. So here we are. I hope you enjoy watching me feel my way through these 3 mini scenes and seeing how I choose and mix colors for each thumbnail. And if you'd like to see a full video of any one of the sketches painted on a larger scale, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear which one calls to you. In this first sketch, you'll see a tiny hummingbird, a faithful visitor who comes to visit our plants daily, taking breaks only during cold days. Watching her hover over the sage and fruit trees brings me so much joy. I'm truly enamored by her spirit and grateful she chooses to spend her time with us. I began the sketch by pre-wetting the paper, then dropping in a soft mix of yellow and rose. This immediately creates the atmosphere of a warm, sun-drenched day. Once that light is established, I continue by painting the scattered green leaves and the delicate velvety texture of the Mexican sage. While the first thumbnail is drying, I'm going to move over to the second one and begin sketching this beautiful egret. I see these birds often here in the Bay Area, and I'm always struck by their quiet presence. They can stand absolutely still, eyes fixed on the water below, just waiting, completely patient, completely focused, until the right moment arrives. There is something in that stillness that draws me. As I sketch her shape and place her gently along the water's edge, I start thinking about how she seems to live entirely from moment to moment. She isn't rushing ahead to the next thing. She's just here, watching the ripples, feeling the light, trusting that what she needs will come. And it makes me wonder how often I allow myself to live that way, to truly notice the simple, ordinary miracles around me. The quiet elegance of this bird, the soft shapes of the landscape that holds her, even the air moving in and out of my lungs right now as I paint. When I slow down enough to pay attention, I feel more rooted, more present and deeply grateful just to be here, witnessing her through my sketch. And moments like this remind me that noticing the little things isn't small at all. It's what brings us back to ourselves. A single bird standing by the water, a patch of light on the bank, the sound of gentle breeze. These tiny details can gently pull us out of worry and into the here and now, where we can breathe, feel, and remember that we are part of this living, breathing world. After laying in the first wash on dry paper, I start building up the scene by adding the distant trees and the vegetation growing along the water's edge. I'm applying the shapes wet into wet so they stay soft and diffused, which helps them feel as if they're gently receding into the distance. As I paint, I'm careful to avoid the shape of the bird. Instead of using white paint, I simply leave that area untouched, so the white of the paper forms the bird's silhouette. This approach is called negative painting. To suggest the water that's closer to us, I shift to more saturated blues and darker colors, creating a stronger contrast and a sense of atmospheric perspective. And when I notice the surface starting to lose its sheen, I work a bit more quickly, adding just a few final strokes and shapes before leaving the paper to dry completely. While I'm suggesting these dry grasses with my size 4 liner brush, I want to emphasize once again what makes things recede or stand out in a painting. Usually, objects that are closer to us appear larger, and smaller shapes feel farther away. You can also notice how darker, sharper marks seem to come forward, while lighter, softer, more fuzzy shapes tend to fade into the distance. Color plays a big role too. Warmer colors generally appear closer to the viewer, and cooler colors tend to recede. There are many other ideas that help us create a sense of depth and perspective, but these are the ones I'm thinking about as I work on this little scene. In so many of my painting sessions with you, I find myself coming back to the same thought, how generously nature offers this endless wealth of tiny, fascinating details for us to contemplate. When we spend time outside, we slowly begin to notice more: the shifting light, the movement of air, the textures of leaves and grasses, the quiet lives of all the little creatures around us. Without us even asking, the natural world invites us into a kind of gentle contemplation. It nudges us to wonder about our own place in the web of life and quietly teaches us how things grow, change, and coexist. And when we allow ourselves to really look, to follow the flight of a bird, or trace the pattern of branches against the sky, we start to feel how deeply interconnected everything is. The same air that moves through the trees moves through our lungs. The same water cycles through clouds, creeks, and the cells of our own bodies. Sensing this vast oneness can be incredibly comforting. It reminds us that we are not separate or alone, but part of a larger living order that keeps unfolding with or without us. For me, that awareness brings both meaning and hope, a sense that even in confusing times, there is a quiet, beautiful harmony at work, and every small act of noticing is a way of tuning back into it. And now I'm moving back to our first sketch to add some definition to Mexican sage. And when I say details, I really just mean suggesting the shapes, letting the brush hint at those long velvet spikes without drawing every petal. To capture the specific soft glowing purple, I'm using a mix of opera and rose madder genuine, combined with a touch of cobalt blue. You see this plant everywhere in California, and for good reason. It's incredibly drought tolerant and tough, yet it looks so soft and inviting. I know some people worry it can get a bit aggressive in a garden, taking up more space than you might expect, but when I see how much life it supports, I find it hard to mind. The hummingbirds absolutely love it. Between this sage and the bright orange lion's tail that blooms late in the fall in our backyard, our garden becomes this little haven for them. Watching them zip from flower to flower, fighting over the best spots, or just resting for a split second, it fills me with so much gratitude. These fleeting moments of beauty, these tiny energetic visitors, feel like gifts. Every time they visit our yard, I feel this sudden, overwhelming sense of love and connection to nature and to such vibrant wildlife. adding these last details to the first sketch, I want to share something a little bit more personal with you. Lately, my health has asked me to slow down a bit. Some days feel smaller and more limited than I would like. But this is where art has become such an important companion for me. When I sit down to paint, it's not that the difficulties disappear, but they soften at the edges. Focusing on a single brushstroke, a tiny bird, the curve of a branch, brings my attention back to the present moment. My breathing settles, my thoughts quiet a little, and I feel like I'm part of something larger and more beautiful than whatever pain or worry I might be carrying. There's actually a lot of evidence now that creative work can support our mental and emotional well-being, helping to reduce stress, calm the nervous system, and give us a sense of meaning and agency, especially during challenging times. And for me, painting nature does exactly that. It reminds me that I'm still capable of noticing beauty, of creating, of sharing something gentle with others. So, if you feel that little pull towards painting or any kind of creative work, I really want to encourage you to follow it. You don't need perfect health, perfect energy, or perfect results. You just need a bit of curiosity and a willingness to show up. I believe that when we create and when we share the creativity with each other, we tap into a strength and hope that can carry us through so much more than we realize. Now you see me move on to the third sketch, a moody scene of the Pacific shoreline. This is Bean Hollow State Beach, a place we enjoy going. My son loves playing in the sand there, and I usually just sit there listening to the steady rhythm of the waves, almost like a heartbeat. After the winter storms, I noticed a small creek carving its way through the sand, finally meeting the ocean, and the shorebirds were, as always, faithfully there. For the sketch, I began by pre-wetting the sky area, then gently suggest the sky peeking through the soft ocean mist. In the water, I left tiny specks of white paper untouched to hint at incoming waves and breaking foam. You might notice how limited my palette is here. I chose just a few deeper, quieter colors to keep the scene harmonious. I was sketching late in the evening, so the darker, moodier tones are partly my way of compensating for that, and partly a reflection of how I was feeling inside. Around this time, I had just learned about the unrest in our country, and my heart was aching for all the lives lost, for families torn apart. Sitting here sketching the sea, I kept thinking about how we can learn to understand each other, how compassion and the courage to see one another as human before anything else. I feel like peace begins in how we look at each other, how we soften our hearts, how we refuse to let hatred have the final word. And as I layer this darker blue and grays, I'm thinking about that. The waves keep returning to the shore over and over, no matter how many storms pass. In the same way, every small act of kindness, every attempt to understand rather than to judge, is like another wave of compassion washing over something broken. I know a painting can't change the world, but in these moments of sketching, thinking about the ocean and the birds tracing their paths across the sky, I feel a quiet hope that the love and peace are not just ideas, but real possibilities that begin in our own hearts and how we choose to live, notice, and care today. Dear friends, as we close these 3 thumbnail sketches, I want to take a moment simply to say thank you. Your presence here means so much to me. Together we've traveled through 3 small worlds, from the sunlit, energetic joy of the hummingbird to the stillness and patience of the egret, and finally to the rhythmic, misty shores of the Pacific. We've explored how these tiny windows of nature, a flash of wings, a silent stance, a rolling wave, offer us a place to rest when life feels heavy. We've talked about how creativity can be a refuge, how the simple act of mixing color and watching water flow helps us find our footing again, even amidst personal challenges or heartache for the world. So I want to leave you with this thought. May you find your own small windows of awe this week. May the rustle of leaves or the flight of a bird remind you that you are held by something vast and beautiful. And may we all keep cultivating a quiet peace within our hearts, trusting that, like the creek finding the ocean, our collective love will eventually find its way to healing. Until next time, my dear friends, paint with love and take good care.